Hey everyone, welcome. This is Jason Clemmons, Doctor of Chiropractic at the Rock Health and Wellness Center, and this is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. We're coming to you live from the Rock Health and Wellness Center studios in Lubbock, Texas, and I'm live on the radio at 98.7 Walk by Faith Radio and 1420 AM Lubbock Christian Nation. We are also live on Facebook at the Rock Health and Wellness Centers. We're live on YouTube at Health from the Rock, and we're live on X at Dr. Jason Clemmons. We're live on Live 365 app, and we're streaming at 987radio.com. So we're all over the world right now, right here from Lubbock, the mecca of health and wellness. I hope you guys had a great day. We had a great day. We did a good job last night talking about coffee for all you coffee lovers. That gave us a little bit of science, a little bit of research. I don't know if it's science or not, but it's a little bit of research to just confirm the idea that, hey, a cup of coffee is not that bad for you. And it gives you a good lots of health benefits that go along with your coffee. So tonight I want to take the show, and then I want to carry forward on our coffee conversation, because I want to finish up just a little bit. I want to add one more little conversation to it, because last night when we were talking about it, I had another article that went along with it, and so I wanted to share that information with you because that came from the nurses study that was done. But just in case you guys didn't get to watch last night's show, just remember all of our shows are on Facebook. The guys do a good job. If you guys are listening to us on the radio, you can get to it at Walk by Faith Radio. They share all of our shows most of our shows with you on our Walk by Faith or the Walk by Faith Facebook page. But you can go back to YouTube and you can check them all out. You can see them on Twitter at my page X. You can go to our Facebook page. That's and you can make comments or whatever, and I'll get those. But last night we were talking about the association of daily sitting time. So a sedentary lifestyle, and how many of us don't get enough steps during the day? I've never counted my steps, but I can tell you that I get a lot of steps in the day. I go from one adjusting room to another adjusting room and back and forth all day long. And our building that we've been blessed with to be here in Lubbock is it's 20 steps from my office right here all the way back to where the kitchen is in the back. So if I go back there and give me something to drink, I've counted those steps a lot of times. So it's got to be somewhere around 60 feet right there that we're back and forth. Our gym's on the other side. We got lots of steps. Going on. But I know there's a lot of people out there who don't get enough steps. Some of you are retired people, and you're not getting enough steps. Some of you are working people that are working at a desk all day long, and you're not getting enough steps. And it's a big thing these days to know how many steps you have. And when someone says that to me, they'll say, "Hey doc, I got 10,000 steps today," or "I got 14,000 steps," or whatever it is, right? And to be quite honest with you, I don't really know. I personally don't know what the scale is. I don't know what that means. I don't know from a step count standpoint how many steps is a lot. People say you should get 10,000 steps. I don't know who those people are, and I don't know how they said it. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying that's one piece that's like arnica, like last night, yesterday that I got in trouble for not knowing anything about. Well, that's one of the things I just don't know anything about the number of steps that are important. But I can tell you this, that it's super important to be on your feet. And it's super important from a standpoint that I don't think you really understand. And we have so many confusing things when it comes to health and wellness about what it is that actually is driving that health and wellness. And we sometimes think, and I want to get into cult therapy here later on too, but maybe we haven't realized. Maybe we haven't realized it, and maybe the ones that watch the show have realized it, but maybe the majority of people haven't realized that it's not necessarily just the steps. It's not just about um, how many steps you take, but what it actually does to your brain, and how your brain is getting is such involved in that, in your health. Your brain is involved in your health, and we just don't think of it. I know for a fact we don't think of it. There's like four of us that think of it, right? Out of everybody on the planet, there's not that many people. We're not thinking about it. We're thinking about it. We're thinking about other things that we may have been taught somewhere along the way, but we're not really getting that. Um, we're not really getting that information to understanding from the brain. So that's kind of what I want to do tonight. I want to see if we are. I want to take I want to take the learning that we did yesterday. I want to take the coffee conversation that we did yesterday, and I want to carry it into uh, the next level of understanding, which takes it into the next level of understanding, which gives us a practical, hands-on way, and literally a hands-on way to understand it. To take this information. I talk to a lot of people, and I talk to people on a daily basis. And I know there's a lot of smart people out there, and you guys that are super smart get bored with stuff like this, and you really wish that I would say something else, maybe. I don't know. But I don't know that we take the steps. I don't know that we read an article and we apply it in a way, or we really understand the depth of what it's trying to say. Maybe that's what I mean. Maybe we're not really understand the depth. So what, Jason, what are you talking about? Okay, let's just look at that article again yesterday. Because it was associated of daily sitting time and coffee consumption. Okay, we know that, right? And it's the risk of all-cause cardiovascular disease and mortality amongst U.S. adults. And the BCM Public Health, and I said this yesterday, and I feel kind of bad about it because I get this stuff from Dr. Dan Murphy, and I know when Dan brings it to me, it's legitimate and it's a good stuff. But BCM Public Health, it's an open access, peer-reviewed journal that considered articles on the epidemiology of disease and the understanding of all aspects of health. Yeah, Biomedical Central. That's what it stands for. Biomedical Central, open access, peer-reviewed journal. Okay, that's what that came from. I was thinking about that in the middle of the night last night after we talked about that. I was like, I don't know what BMC Public Health is. But this is where this is the article, April 17th, 2024, volume number 24, number 1, article 1069. In case you're wondering why I always say that every single time I bring an article, it's because the State Board of Chiropractic Examiners in the state of Texas makes me do that. They tell me that, hey, if you're going to share some information with someone, you need to tell them where you got it from. So that's why I do it. I'm trying to be compliant with my state board rules and make sure that everybody knows when I'm bringing you this piece of information, this is where I got it from. And this is a prospective cohort analysis of 10,639 U.S. adults to evaluate the independent and joint association of daily sitting time and coffee intakes with mortality. So that's what we did. And I'm not going to go back over the article, but that's the article that we were going over yesterday. So what they defined it in here, prolonged sitting was defined as sitting for more than 6 hours a day. So they went through the whole article and they talked about cups of coffee, whether or not you did not drink any coffee, whether you drank a little bit of coffee, whether you drank between 1.5 and 2.5 cups a day, or whether or not you drank over 2.5 cups per day. And basically what they said was what you would expect it to say, that a sedentary lifestyle is bad for you. Behavior has been demonstrated to be a modifiable factor for several chronic diseases. Regardless of physical activity, prolonged sitting and independent association with harmful health outcomes, including cancerous, metabolic, and cardiovascular disease. So we know that if you sit for too long, you're not doing yourself justice. You're really not. But why? That's the big question. Why? Why is that the case? Okay, and that's what I want to take. That's what I want to do tonight. I want to take that and I want to tie it together. This is coffee consumption has believed to be beneficial. It's one of the most widely consumed beverages in the world. Coffee is rich in bioactive substances. There is growing evidence that drinking coffee significantly reduces morbidity, and that was true when they got down to it. Um, People with the highest quartile of coffee consumption had reduced risk of all-cause mortality by 33%. So, a sedentary lifestyle is not good for us. Not being on our feet and moving is not good for us. And drinking some coffee is fine. Okay, now, let's get to the next article, because this is an article in the Journal of Nutrition, Nutritional Epidemiology, June 8th, 2016, volume 146, pages 1373 through 1378, the Journal of Nutrition. Coffee consumption is positively associated with longer leukocyte telomere length in the Nurses' Health Study. This was done by the National Cancer Institute, National Institutes of Health, and Harvard Medical School. The study cites 52 references. The Nurses' Health Study is a prospective cohort study of female nurses that began in 1976. The author assessed 4,780 of them. This is the largest study of coffee consumption and telomere length. It is the first analysis to examine the association between decaffeinated coffee consumption and telomere length. And it went through this, the whole thing. Coffee is an important source of antioxidants, just like we said. Coffee consumption is associated with many health conditions and lower mortality risk. Coffee contains many antioxidants and polyphenols. In populations that regularly consume coffee, coffee is a major source of antioxidant intake and constitutes a high percentage of dietary total antioxidant capacity. Coffee and its compounds can protect against DNA damage. DNA damage is complicated, but DNA damage happens in two different places inside the cell. One of them is inside the nucleus, and number two is inside our mitochondria, because the mitochondria have their own DNA. So that is the other place that it happens, is inside those mitochondria. So if the mitochondria is the power plant to the cell, and the mitochondria is what turns that power on and keeps that power going, it just makes logical sense to me that we would want to try to do our very best to protect our mitochondria. That's what our fish oil is about. That's what our antioxidants is about. That's what our blueberries are about. That's what keeping our 6:3 ratio is about. That's what I said last night, right? Telomere is a biomarker of aging. Telomere shortening can be accelerated by oxidative stress. The way I think of a telomere, and when we're talking about the DNA, I think of a telomere as that little, I don't even know. Hang on, I got a pair of tennis shoes on right now. Yeah, they still have them. I was going to say, I don't know if they still have them. They had them when I was a kid. It's that little piece of plastic on the end of your shoestring. And all of us know this, that your shoestring is going to last a lot longer as long as you got that little piece of plastic on the end of your shoestring. As you wear that plastic off and you pull that thing off, and that hardly, it's kind of funny because it doesn't happen to me as a grown person anymore. I cannot tell you the last time I popped a shoelace. I don't know if you guys do that often, but it's been a long, long time since I've had a pair of shoes long enough. Thank the Lord, amen. I'm blessed and spoiled rotten. I know that, but it's been a long time since I've worn out a pair of shoes that long, and maybe they've changed the dynamics of the shoestring, but and I didn't mean to get off on shoestrings either. But we all know that, especially if you grew up in the 80s, 70s or 80s, you know dang well that when the end of that plastic off the end of that shoestring finally gets worn off, you better be ready to get replacing those shoes. And it's really hard to relace them after that's happened, right? Because you got to spit on the end of that shoestring, and then you got to kind of wind it up so that and you could get your shoes to relace through that shoestring. Man, growing up in the 80s was great. I don't know if all you guys that remember that, like y'all are probably laughing right now, thinking first of all, this was crazy, and second of all, it's kind of cool to think about that. So I think of that when I think of telomeres. Telomeres are basically those end caps that when they get worn down, it really does shorten the life of those chromosomes, and you just lose your ability to keep going. So let me get here. Telomere, although somatic cell telomere shortens with age because of the end replication problem, oxidative stress accelerates their shortening. Compared with no coffee drinkers, the odds of having above medium telomere length were those who drank 2 to 3 cups a day of coffee. Those drinking 2 to 3 cups of coffee per day was by 29%. Those of drinking greater than 3 cups of coffee per day was 36%. The higher total coffee consumption was significantly associated with longer telomeres after potential confounding adjustment. We found that higher coffee consumption is associated with longer telomeres among female nurses. Shorter telomeres have been associated with lower life expectancy and higher risk of age-related chronic diseases. So, just basically what the article is talking about is the antioxidant effects from oxidative stress from telomeres in these nurses that they studied. So if you can keep the caps on the end of your chromosomes, if you can keep those caps on there for a long period of time and you don't shorten those caps, there's a really good chance that cell is going to live longer. And we know that the body's made up of cells. Cells make up tissues. Tissues make up organs. Organs make up organ systems. So that's one thing. It's just another piece of information right there that says this is what is important for trying to be healthy. Okay? So just know that. Just know that is something that you can do. If you want something that you can do, you can have some coffee. Now, what we said right at the end of the show last night is you got to be super careful because cream and sugar in the coffee is creating a set of toxins. You still might get the benefits of telomere length because of the antioxidant properties of the coffee, but now you're adding that toxicity to it that's going to cause other problems in your liver that you don't want to deal with. And I had a patient this week talk about the creamer, and she's like, she's got this mucus problem that she just can't get rid of. And I said, well, it's got to be some sort of allergic response to something. Like and let's go through your diet. What are you eating? And we've talked about a diet lots of times, but we were talking about it. And I said, what'd you have for breakfast? She said, a cup of coffee, and that's it. And I was like, what'd you put in your coffee? And she's like, 4 creamers. And I'm like, okay. The problem with that is neurological. That's a problem. It's not a taste issue. It's a neurological issue. That we're having a problem. I mean, I guess if you don't drink the coffee because it doesn't taste good, then you're not solving your neurological issue. But that's not the reason that you're drinking the coffee and you're toxifying yourself with all the cream and sugar. That cream and sugar part gets into the neurology of it. Okay, I'm getting off track there, but that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. I just wanted to finish that up and say, look, a sedentary lifestyle and drinking some coffee has effects on your health, and I wanted to follow it up with another article that supported that idea that was done with over since 1976 that this Harvard nurses study was done. You know what also came from that Harvard nurses study? The nurses that drank milk had the highest level of osteoporosis. Just going to leave that out there for you to think about. Yeah. What did he just say? Yeah, that's what I said. That's the truth. Been done right there. All right. So where do we want to go with this idea of sedentary lifestyle, and why is it so important to get on our feet? Well, I wanted to talk about, because I had this conversation. I had a new patient this week, and he was really confused about what I was doing. Which it's kind of funny. Like, sometimes I'm confused with what I'm doing. So it's fair enough. I mean, I'm not saying it in any sort of negative way. But let me get all my tabs hooked up again. But what I was doing is I was using the tuning fork, and I was using the tuning fork on his fingertips, and I was putting that vibration of that tuning fork on the fingertips, and he was like, "What? Like, okay, what are you doing right now? Why are you using my fingertips, and why are you using the tuning fork on my fingertips?" And I was like, "Well, I'm working on your brain." And he's like, "What?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm working on your brain." And so what I had to explain to him is the homunculus. And I wanted to explain it to you guys again tonight, because I don't think you could get it enough times. I think it just is something that just needs to be repeated and repeated and repeated. And if you can just get it, if you can do it enough times, then you'll really start to understand it. That there, inside your brain, you have different sections of your brain that have different functions. Like, one of the sections of your brain help you say words. They help you form sentences. Sometimes it's funny, because sometimes my brain obviously doesn't work very well in that particular region or whatever, right? We've got different parts of the brain. Well, there is a part of our brain that controls motor movement, that is involved with motor movement. Let me say it that way. It's involved with motor movement. What is motor movement? That's the movement of our body. That's how we move ourselves around. That's how we move our arms. It's how we move our legs. That's if we want to turn our head. We've got this firing pattern that's generated in this particular region of the brain. This portion of the brain that's basically the motor area of the brain. That's the part. That's what is happening right there. We got the motor area of the brain, and I've got all these tabs open again. But so the motor area of the brain, it has a certain number of neurons in it. And right behind that motor area of the brain is the sensory area of the brain. And the sensory area of the brain receives all of the sensory information that you have from your body. So when you touch your arm, you're getting two different sets of sensory information simultaneously. You're getting the sensory information that you have on your arm, and you're getting the sensory information that's coming from your fingertips. Both of those things are happening simultaneously, but they're not in the same proportions. They're not. And so if we were to take the motor cortex and the sensory cortex of the brain, and we were to count the number of neurons that are in that area, count the number of nerves that are in that part of the brain, and then we were to build a little human being, and we were to assign We were to build a little human being based on the number of neurons that that body part was assigned to in that brain, that motor and sensory cortex. What would that little human being look like? And that's what this little homunculus is. That's what that little human being actually looks like. Is this little dude right here? Now I know you're on the radio, you can't see it, but maybe you could look it up. Just HOMUNCULUS, homunculus. That's what this, and you got to be careful because it shows all the body parts on the homunculus sometimes. So they're all, sometimes the little models have all the body parts. This particular one that we have here doesn't. But we got to take a break. We're coming up on a break. Let's take the break and then we'll come back. And then I don't want to talk during the break because last night we got sound. So I'm going to test it tonight and see what happens. We're gonna take this break, and then we're gonna come back in just a second, and then we'll just see what's going on. So you guys just stick with me just for a minute. Okay, everybody, we're back. This is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. Last night, for some reason, the radio station came through on our video feed. That's what I love about this show. I'll tell you what, when we finally figure this out, I'm probably going to take all you guys to dinner. You guys that are less like listeners, normal, regular listeners of this show, you should just send me a text. 806-794-0400. Just send me your name to that number and send me a text for you guys that listen to this show on a regular basis because we're going to have a feast when we ever figure this out. When we get the audio and the video working at the same time so that it all works together, I promise. I'm buying dinner. I'm buying dinner for everybody. So it's like, golly. I was watching the show back last night because I'm trying to get all this stuff fixed and working out. working to see what it said, and I was watching it, and when we went to the break on the radio station last night, all of the radio commercials came through on the Facebook page, and I think that was the first time that that's happened. I don't know exactly for sure, but we've done 180 something or 190 shows, and that's the first time that that ever happened. And I don't know what I did. I don't know what button I pushed to make that happen, but somehow I did that, and so I pushed some different. I pushed some different buttons today, and so we'll see if it changed. So anyway, I got a kick out of it. I get a kick out of a lot of this stuff. You guys, I don't know if you do or not, but I got a kick out of it. I was like, golly, how can you do that? Like, it's like there's how many different ways can you mess this show up? I'm getting them. I'm covering them in this first year. If we do it, just think, if we do this show for 10, 15, 20 more years, we'll think, man, y'all look back and say, you remember that first year? That was crazy. We finally got it. So, all right, what does the homunculus mean? What does it mean, and what's it have to do with anything? And so what, right? So what was I doing? So the homunculus, this little man right here, is just a representation of the number of neurons in your brain that are related to each body part. And I really want you to look at that little dude for a second, because those hands right there are really, really big in that little homunculus. That little man has very giant hands. Okay? He's got little arms. He's got little shoulders, but he's got really big hands, and he's got really big lips. Well, think about that from a child. Get your mind out of the gutter for a second and think about it from a child's perspective. Think about a little kid. What does a little kid do when they start to assimilate into their environment? When they hit that 3-month part and they roll over on their tummies, and even before that, right? What are they doing? What are they doing before that? Everything is starting to go from the hand to the mouth. What is the thing? What is the deal with that? How come that's a thing? How come a little kid does that? Because you hand them this tuning fork, and they'll grab the tuning fork and then they'll put it in their mouth. But you know what they'll do before they'll grab the tuning fork is they'll back up away from it. They'll back up away from it because they're not sure whether or not it's dangerous. And that's their right hemisphere working, the unknown. Come right up to them really quickly with it, and you'll scare them with it because they'll back up. They're like, what is that? And then almost always they'll reach for it. And when they reach for it, they'll reach for it with their right hand. And they'll take it with their right hand. What does that mean to me? What that means to me, as Dr. Clemmons, is it means that they've taken it out of their right hemisphere unknown over to their left known, and it's not threatening anymore. And now we got to figure out what its use is. What is the use of having this thing in my hand? What kind of tool is it actually? What can I do with this thing? And where am I going to take it? I'm going to take it right straight to my mouth. Why am I doing that? Well, look where my little homunculus man is. Where are most of the motor and neural and sensory information in the brain? How many of those nerves are related to our mouth and our lips? A lot. And how many of those nerves are related to our hands? A lot. A lot. Like, so if we were going to build a little person and we were going to say, hey, okay, we're going to take all the neurons in the brain that are related to the hand and make it in a proportion to the elbow and the shoulder and the rest of the body, man, we would end up with these big giant hands. So what does that mean to me from a neurological perspective? What that means to me is I can use the hands to affect the brain. I can use the hands. I can make this tuning fork hum a little bit, and then I can use the fingertips. 2,500 per square centimeter. If I did the measurement with my ruler, if you take the end of this tuning fork and you put it on your finger, and then you draw a square around it. I did it on a piece of paper. I just put the tuning fork down on a piece of paper, and then I drew a square around it to measure what that. Maybe I do the 1 millimeter square box first, and then I put the tuning fork in the middle, and I was like, man, that's almost covering that whole box. It's like, wow. You know what I have the capacity to do? I have the capacity to stimulate a large number of those neurons in the brain by using the fingertips. And we do that a lot because it's way quicker. It's easier. I do the same thing with vibration all the time. I use the vibration on the wrist. I've got a little one of those little hyperbolt goes that I carry that we have in the office, and I'll use the wrist and the elbow and the shoulder. But I'm using it on a specific side. A lot of times I'll work on the left, and I work on the left side to drive to the right side of the brain because I'm a 100% believer in the up and the right and over to the left pathway that needs to work properly. And so we'll use that information to fire up into the brain, and we'll use the hands. So studying the homunculus gives us information that tells us, hey, wow, like I could do a lot. I could do a lot with these fingers and these hands. Holding hands is very intimate with someone, right? A kiss is very intimate with someone. Like you get that connection with that other person when you hold their hand. You get that connection with that other person with your lips. But where is the connection actually processed? The connection is processed in the brain. That is massively important in understanding a sedentary lifestyle. And you're like, what? Yes, it's massively important when you say, okay, the studies are showing that a sedentary lifestyle is bad for me. Yes, that's 100% true. But why is it bad for you? It's bad for you because it's not firing your brain. That you're losing neurons in your brain. You're losing efficiency of your brain to your body. And what we have learned over the last week is the cancerous causing problems with that. The cardiovascular disease problems with that. The COPD problems with that we talked about last week. The all-cause mortality that goes up. Every one of those studies, that's where people get confused, I think, when they're trying to study health and wellness, is because they study the peripheral things. Like remember the radio conversation that I heard about the blueberries don't stop mitochondrial dysfunction, and I was like, yeah, why? You know, I know you if you've listened to the show, you've heard me talk about that before, right? How many times have you heard? How many times have you had a conversation, or you've heard a conversation, or you heard one doctor say that taking your supplements is good for you, and another doctor say taking your supplements makes expensive urine? You've heard that, right? How many times have you heard somebody argue about whether or not the fish oil was good for cardiovascular disease, or the fish oil wasn't good for cardiovascular disease, or whatever, right? You can get that with almost every single health and wellness thing. You can if you use the tool wrong, this tuning fork could be a hammer. Like if I had a nail that I needed to hammer with, I could probably hit that nail with this tuning fork. Now, it's not going to be a very good hammer. And so if I was trying to nail something with this tuning fork and I said, yeah, I tried that and it just sucked. The tuning fork sucked. And it's like, well, dude, it sucks as a hammer, but it doesn't suck as a tuning fork. It works pretty good as a tuning fork, and it'll create vibration all over you. If you want to use it, you can use it and see if you can feel that vibration. My point is, if you don't understand where true health really comes from, if you don't understand this whole above down, inside out process, and you really don't understand innate intelligence, You will get blown here and there by every wind of change and every cunning and craftiness of men that is on this earth. You will not have a rock to build your health on if you don't understand where your health comes from. It's so sad for me. It's so sad for me when I see it in people every single day. It's a sad thing. And it's like, look, you got to understand how you don't have to understand all the intricacies of it. You don't have to get way deep into it, but just understand, like, look, if I want to be healthy, I got to keep my brain healthy. I have to keep my brain healthy. And so when we read that article and it says that there's a sedentary lifestyle that causes heart disease or cancer or any of those other things, chronic diseases start to increase rapidly in a sedentary lifestyle. It lowers the onset of chronic disease. Another way that we could say that sentence is, when our brain stops working properly, it lowers the age of onset of chronic disease. Like, it's because when we get on our feet, then we fire our brain. Then we fire our brain properly. And one of the things that happens when we get on our feet and we fire our brain is that we inhibit our sympathetics. We decrease our sympathetic fight or flight response. That is one of the ways that you can control health. Like, if we had to give you a nugget right now and say, all right, Jason, you say a bunch of stuff, but tell me something I can do to make my health better. You can get to the fundamentals. It's so awesome because we just started the third quarter of the year. And I love the third quarter. It's like one of the best quarters in a football game. From my standpoint, I love the third quarter because what happens in the first half doesn't really matter. If you just keep it relatively close, it doesn't really matter. You got plenty of time in the second half. But in the second half, if you've made some mistakes, if you threw 4 interceptions in the first half of the game, it's okay. Look, it's okay. You've made some mistakes along the way. But now we're in the third quarter of the year. The third quarter of the year is fundamentals. We're not being risky. We're not being crazy. We're getting back to the fundamentals. And I've talked about it on the show before. I don't think January is the time to set our goals, right? But this is July. It's hot outside. We got fruit and vegetables growing. We've got all kinds of stuff going on. We can get outside and move. This is the fundamental time of year to take control of your health. This is the time. And it's not the time to buy a new treadmill. It's not the time to go out and go crazy with a bunch of new ideas. This is not the time for that. This is the time for fundamentals. The third quarter is the time. Take it. Listen, I'm telling you, I played in lots of football games in my lifetime, and I made lots of mistakes in my lifetime in the first half of those football games. I made very few mistakes in the fourth quarter of any of those football games, because that's how you get beat, is in that fourth quarter. So you got to make sure that when you get to the third quarter, which is what we're in right now in this time of year, let's just get back to fundamental things. Let's get back to the blocking and tackling of life. Let's get back to the eat well, move well, think well, Dr. Chestnut says, right? Let's get back to the fundamental 5 essentials of health: food, water, oxygen, rest, and nerve energy. Let's get back to understanding that the way my brain works has a lot to do with the way that my body's going to work, and I need to start doing some things that really protect my brain. I really need to move. If I've got some kids, one of the articles that I think I have open with the kids, is this one right here. This was August 13, 2018. This is from Baylor. I got all this from Dr. Hall. Dr. Hall of the Brain DC, he's the one that taught me my neurology stuff. Brilliant man. I really appreciate Dr. Hall and all of his work. This is part of our slide. This is part of our notes from the one of the seminars I took for him. August 13th, 2018, Baylor University. Adolescents with a strong hand grip, as indicated of overall muscle strength, have better odds of being healthy over time, according to a 2-year study of 368 elementary school students. The findings give insights to identify youngsters at future risk for developing diabetes and cardiovascular disease. That's what this article is saying right there. And I'll even make it a little bit bigger for you. Adolescents with strong hand grip, an indicator of overall muscle strength. You know what it's an indicator of? It's an indicator of brain strength. We use this on every single new patient that comes into the office that is able to squeeze this thing. I've got some new patients who are babies. We don't use this on the babies. But the adults that come into the office, we use this dynamometer to assess grip strength. And so we set it at 0 and we squeeze it, and then we see what it says. That's 59 is the grip strength. And then I've got a chart that says, hey, what does that mean? Are you within normal limits, or are you below normal limits? And that's pretty good. That's on my left side, and then I'll take the right side and I'll squeeze the right side, and that's 59. So one of them was like 59 minus a touch, and this is 59 plus a touch. So it's in that same ballpark on both sides of grip strength. Now, what did I just assess? Did I assess muscle strength? A little bit, of assessment, but not really. What I'm really assessing is brain strength. Do I have the brain strength right there with the grip strength? And that's what this article is saying, is that, hey, this grip strength is really important. It's important for us to understand that it's like, hey, here's another one. 10-year secular changes in muscular fitness in English children. The academics led by Dr. Sandercock, a children's fitness expert in Essex University, studied how strong a group of 315 10-year-olds in 2008 were compared with 309 children of the same age in 1998. They found that the number of sit-ups a 10-year-old can do declined by 27% in that 10 years. Arm strength fell by 26% and grip strength by 7%. Okay, arm strength and grip strength declined, and it said, hey, look, if that happens, there's a chance that we're going to start to see sickness and disease in these kids. They're not going to be as healthy. Here's another one right here. Is the lack of physical activity strategy for children complicit mass child neglect? A rapidly evidence-based demonstrates a link between academic performance and physical fitness. That's what we talked about in the Spark book, right? For children of all ages and socioeconomic groups. There is also an inverse association between physical fitness and reported violent and antisocial incidents in schools. Physical education games, their importance and pervasiveness of physical inactivity among school children has led to a recent Lancet call for physical activity to be a priority for all schools. Yes, when we lose our physical activity, then what ends up happening is we lose our brain. We lose our brain, and then we start having all of the associated problems that go with losing our brain. And when one of the things, the coffee part of the article, the coffee part of it said, hey, look, antioxidants protect you and help you be healthier. That's what it said. It wasn't some magic about coffee. It's about the antioxidant effect and decreasing the oxidative stress, the free radical damage that goes on to the DNA, and mainly the free radical damage that goes along to the DNA inside the mitochondria. That's what the coffee part was saying. It was saying, hey, look, one of the ways that you can be healthier, One of the fundamental things that you can do to be healthier is you can make sure that you have plenty of antioxidants and that you're decreasing your oxidative stress, your free radical stress. Then the article came along, the radio show came along and said, well, what about blueberries? Taking blueberries don't stop mitochondrial damage. Well, if you did the study on the average American who was 25-1, then you would understand why the blueberries don't matter. So the blueberries don't matter if your omega-6-3 ratio is too high. But if your omega-6-3 ratio is proper, then the blueberries matter. So that's the nutritional component of oxidative stress, of decreasing oxidative stress, is there's a nutritional component to it. There's also a movement component to it, that if we move and we exercise, we can decrease that same amount of stress. That's what the studies are saying, that if we exercise and we take more steps, we have longer telomeres. We are able to handle our life better. So fundamentally, as we get into the end of this the show tonight, and we're really starting into this third quarter, fundamentally there are things we can do to make it better. We can eat well, we can move well, and we can think well. We can go back to the 5 essentials of health. We can get the nutrients that we need. I was just looking at Insulin Resistant One on Instagram right before I got on here. Is high protein breakfast. That is, oh man, it was high protein breakfast, and his blood sugar. And this was I was just watching it right here. Justin Richards is eggs, avocado, looks like turkey, and some sauerkraut of all things. I'm going to skip that part, but you guys might love it. And a little bit of raspberries right there. And like, I'll just keep it on there because what he does is he eats that, and then he measures what it does to his blood sugar. And so he's like, hey, if we have a high protein breakfast, and there's lots of fat and protein and fiber in that, but there's almost no carbs in that breakfast. And he says, okay, what will it do to my blood sugar? And what it does to his blood sugar is nothing. It's flat. We don't have any blood sugar problems right there when we start off our day eating protein and fat. When we start off our day eating Pop-Tarts and cereal, we crash the thing. We create so much trouble for ourselves. We are throwing interceptions in the third quarter when we start our day off with that kind of breakfast. We don't need that kind of breakfast. That's not fundamentally sound. We can make that work better if we'll eat some protein in the morning. If we get our day off to some fundamentals, right? And then get on our feet. If you're staying at home and you're not on your feet, you're increasing your chances of chronic disease. If you're working a job and you're not on your feet, you're increasing your chances of chronic disease. So we really need to get our feet moving. The next thing is drink some water. Just drink some water. That would be a great idea for all of us, to drink a little water. I know there's people that say they can live their whole entire lives on no water at all. Okay, fine. Drink some water. That'd be a good one. Get some rest, and then check that nerve energy. Make sure you're getting adjusted. That's a vital part just as much as all the rest of it. Hey, thanks for the show. I appreciate it. You guys have a great night. We will see you tomorrow night at 6. Thanks for watching the show. Holler at me if there's anything we can do to help you.